A faltering national currency and the slowest economic growth in 4 years. These worrying factors are fueling fears over the state of South Korea's economy. Monday, Seoul unveiled a stimulus plan for 2009, including tax cuts and new government spending worth about $11 billion. One of the goals is to throw small business owners a lifeline. Song Jae has more on how they're coping in these hard times.
These days, Oh doesn't need a cup of joe to keep him up at nights. All he has to do is think of how to keep his once fast-growing chain of organic coffee shops profitable. Oh's customers sip their coffee for the same price they did in May, but Oh's cost of importing freshly roasted coffee beans have jumped at least 20% due to the exchange rate alone.
Yeah, I think the intensity of the knot in the stomach has increased somewhat in the last year.
Oh knew trouble was brewing and oil prices skyrocketed at the beginning of the year. But when the Korean won plummeted against the US dollar, he knew he had to drastically cut costs in order to survive. He's already found a local producer for his previously US-made paper cups, and now he's looking to roast his coffee beans in Korea. Oh's coffee shop dilemma is just a microscopic example of why Korean companies across the board have been hit harder than those in most other countries. The stock market losing over 40% of its value since the beginning of the year. The US dollar's gains against the Korean won started earlier this year, then skyrocketed when the global financial crisis hit and everyone was scrambling for dollars, raising fears about Korean banks falling victims. Some point the finger at poor judgment by a new government that wanted to stimulate exports by weakening the Korean won and making Korean products cheaper abroad, then couldn't control the free fall.
From the time that this situation spread all over the world globally, the Korean economic team responded lately, inappropriately, inconsistently, and sometimes against the market, with a wrong belief that they can control the market.
From the president on down, government officials assured the domestic and international markets that with foreign currency reserves of some $240 billion, Korea was strong enough to ride out the crisis.
The Korean government will pour sufficient and preemptive cash into the market until the uncertainty is overcome.
And it was only when the government announced a $30 billion currency swap line with the U.S. Federal Reserve in late October that the market seemed to calm down and fears eased. Nevertheless, the market has been hit hard and the government is introducing measures to stimulate domestic demand. But entrepreneurs like Oh can't wait.
We can't sit around. Before in the beginning it was panic, I think, with consumers and even our staff. But now I think it's more of a crisis mode where they see that it's something that we have to work our way through.
Luckily, Oh says he hasn't seen sales drop. He says while Koreans may not shop, they still need their cup of joe. Song Jae, CNN, Seoul.